Beaudry. I was over watching the first production, and he said, I'd like to come in and do the show on the studio. James, good to see you.
Good to see you, too. Good to be here.
No, so what you up to nowadays?
Well, I'm teaching at the University at Buffalo, which is the flagship school of the SUNY system, music theater. I just finished my first year there, and I love it. And it's great because it gives me the summers to come back to this area, which I love.
You know what I find interesting is Brad Lyons, who, of course, you worked with at Timberlake Playhouse, Jay Burkow. They are both, like you now, instructors. What leads you into that?
You know, it's funny. I think working with summer theaters like Timberlake Playhouse or the Clinton Showboat, you work with college students, and that educational aspect of those programs is so important, becomes part of what we do, that it's really easy to apply that in the classroom, because I've worked for 20 years with college age actors and figured out, like, what are the quirks, what are the ways to get them to, like, improve their skills and their craft. So it's just a next logical step. And also there's a pension, so that's great.
You know what is so interesting? I've been going to Timberlake for a number of years, and I can recall your first season at Timberlake. You have grown quite a bit since then.
Yes, in many directions. I was first at Timberlake in 2001 when I was in college. Yeah. Grease was my first show there, which they just did again. Yeah. And then I directed my first professional show there and choreographed. Well, I choreographed Grease also back 22 years ago. It's a great place, you know, and it's in its 62nd season, I think. And it's a wonderful place. Generations of people going there, and to see the growth from, 22 years ago to now it's so wonderful. Both in terms of, like, the company's budget, which is really helpful, but just the physical, the property, the amenities for audiences and artists who are working and staying there.
All right. Well, you brought along with you Cody Jolly as well as Matt Webb, and I know, Cody, you've been on the Timberlake as well, right?
Yeah, this is my fourth time coming back.
That's what I thought. All right. I've enjoyed watching you both on the stage. What have you been up to? Cody, what have you been up to lately?
I just recently moved out to LA, so I've been, moving around. I was in Chicago for about 6 years, and this is my first time back at Timberlake since 2017. So it's just been so cool to be like step away from it for a minute and then coming back and seeing how much it's grown and how much it's changed. And actually, funny enough, me and Matt, we live right across the street from each other, so the dynamic duo has been continuing to dynamically duo across the country. And it's been awesome.
How long have you two known each other? Man.
This is 10 years. This is like the 10th anniversary show, in that we did The Music Man.
With Jim.
James. 10 years ago. And now we're back. And as far as living across the street from each other, it's like we've wreaked havoc in Timberlake, and now we're wreaking havoc on the local census. So it's just, it works out. That's growth.
There you go. Exactly. So what have you been doing? I mean, is it all theater? Are you doing any TV, anything along those lines?
I mean, it's audition, nonstop. But both of us have been lucky to get some gigs here and there, and we got to work around. I mean, I've done a couple, like, little commercials for some Adult Swim stuff, and a little guest spot on a Disney show, and just keeping my head above water.
Yeah.
Do you guys do, like, shows, I mean, like at a theater? I mean, of course, at a theater, but I mean, like a dinner theater on your own, just kind of an improv sort of thing?
We're not food compliant, I think, is the main thing.
We definitely love to, but we just haven't. It's just one of those things. I mean, we found, like, a nice artistic home at Timberlake, and so that's been the reason we've been able to work together so much. And now we're just trying to really work on creating our own things, and trying to just sell that to people, and, hopefully that dynamic works.
That was one of the questions I wanted to bring up, was the appeal of the Timberlake Playhouse. First of all, what brought you to Timberlake when you were really kind of just getting started, and what now has brought you back? Cody, we'll start with you.
I mean, James is the one that brought me back. I mean, it's amazing. He plucked me out of 1,000 kids he saw in a big audition and was like, hey, you know what? I've got a weird idea. I'm not necessarily the typical Harold Hill. That was our very first show all together. But he was like, I see something in you that I think is going to translate better in this than other people. That's not something any normal artistic director or director would, like, pluck someone out in that way. And not only that, but a whole season. And then season after season, it was like there was always just something kind of right. And, you know, I feel like we nurtured like a nice relationship. And then being here, it was very much like I just fell in love with the audiences. Not only do I love, like, you know, James was always great about getting great people on camp, but like I've always felt so supported here, and like people really open up their arms to me every single season that I come back. So it's like, why wouldn't I? It's like a little piece of home, you know. Just even coming back a few years later, it's just been like, wow. Like I've been so nostalgic and like, oh, and seeing how it's changed and how like. I don't know, but some things are still the same. You know, you go downtown Mount Carroll, Illinois, and I'm like, oh, I'm so glad. Like it makes my heart so happy.
And man, the appeal of Timberlake Playhouse.
Well, it's like a family. And I know that sounds very cliche, but it like when James calls, we come a running. And it's everyone we've worked with there, and especially the audiences, have become like friends, and like we know them, and we love to perform for them. So it's just a great experience all around. Like,
I want to talk about the growth also of developing your craft at Timberlake Playhouse. How has that helped you, and now as you continue to do this?
I mean, it's theater boot camp. I mean, I was, I don't know, 18, 19 the first time I came out here, and we do full productions in 2 weeks. Yeah. I mean, we're working on the 39 Steps right now, and it is a massive production. And the fact that we are in 2 weeks, 4 people, a gazillion characters and costumes and props and everything, and we're ready to go. Like, it's just so cool. I mean, we'll do these big musicals, and within 2 weeks, we are ready and rearing to go. And then in a blink of an eye, it's gone again. So it feels like it kind of, every time you leave Timberlake, then it's like, oh, we have 6 weeks to rehearse this. You're like, I'm done. I've been ready for 2 weeks. Like, come on, let's get the pace up. So it prepares you in a way like nothing else can for like what the world of professional theater is like, but almost more than even beyond professional theater feels like.
So what was it like for you, Matt, when you first got that experience of the boot camp?
Well, it's first it shocks the system, and then you just get into the rhythm of it. And I think the skills you learn by the quick turnaround and the focused energy of it, like now that we're both in LA, you know, we get self-tapes for auditions that it's 3 pages of stuff, have it in by tonight. And that feels daunting, but then you remember, I did Young Frankenstein in a week and a half. What's 3 pages?
Yeah.
So the skills translate very well.
Okay. Then James, come on this as well. I mean, as a director now, you're not up on the stage, but how did you learn the directorship with your time at Timberlake?
You know, I learned so much from Brad Lyons, who was the artistic director before me. And he had such an eye for detail. I remember a show that we were in, and it just wasn't working. And he's like, the floor is too light. I was like, what? And he's like, the floor is bouncing too much light, and so we're losing the actors. You can't focus on the actors. We need to like tone down the paint treatment on the floor. And I thought, okay, so we did it, and he was right. But then I learned so many things from Brad just to like quickly look at it and go, oh, this is the note. And you get, you know, as an artistic director later, then I would say, okay, every time I'd come into a show and I'd be like, well, it's almost good, but we need to tighten the screws a little bit. I would think, okay, I get 3 notes. Because at that point, it's too late to start changing everything. Just come in and like, what are the most important 3 things to say? And sometimes it has to do with paint, and sometimes it has to do with light, and sometimes it has to do with the actors not being in their own world, but sharing it with the audience more. So whatever that is, being able to go, this is the thing, and that's what's going to bring this together. And I keep saying it feels like film editing a lot. I think a lot of stage directors are like, we have to work with the actors and the text and make it believable and find out what it means. And I'm of the mind that like if you're finding out what it means in rehearsal, it's too late. You know, you've got to be able to look at it and think about what is the audience going to see moment to moment, and how does that add up to something exciting for them? Because yes, you want the actors to feel good about it and it be truthful, but if the audience isn't leaving with some great experience, why are we doing it? You know, we could do it in our living room and not ask people to pay $35 a ticket. I think there's cheaper tickets too. I'm not sure anymore.
Well, if you're a senior citizen like me, it is.
Great.
Visiting with James Beaudry, Matt Webb, and Cody Jolly. Let's talk a little bit about the production, James.
Sure.
The 39 Steps. Fill us in.
Yeah, so Darren Mangler, the current artistic director, this is his first year, reached out I don't remember how it happened, but they invited me to like meet with them to talk about shows, and I really wanted to do the 39 Steps, but because I mostly do musicals, I thought, oh, they're going to want me for something else. And then they offered me the 39 Steps, so I was delighted. So it's based on Alfred Hitchcock's film, and it was one of his first successes right after the talkies came in London before he went to Hollywood. And if you watch the film, it's almost campy now because it's not a great film by today's standards, because it's still a lot of silent film techniques that they're using. So it feels like a little off, but you can see all of these things that he's going to do later in his career from it. So about 15 years ago in the UK, they took the film and said, let's put this on stage like a comedy and just lean into that campiness of it and use stage comedy effects to tell the story. And it is one of my favorite things I've ever worked on, because I love suspense and I love dramatic surprise for the audience, or what does the audience see that the characters on stage don't see. That's what they love. They love to be in on the story. And it has that all the way through. And then it has these hilarious jokes and gags and bits throughout also. And I think sometimes with a farce, it's like, oh, it's silly and it's funny and ha ha ha, but you get that, but you also get this like spy story throughout. So there's so many ways to access it and engage with it. And then there's like a romantic comedy subplot as well. It's just a really great evening out, and I think no matter what kind of theater you like, it's there for you. The cast is brilliant. The other two actors are also from LA. It's like probably the first all LA cast at Timberlake Playhouse ever. But just wonderful actors, hilarious. We've had the cast of Grease like popping in and out of rehearsals to watch, and it's so great because you work on something and you think, I think this is good. But then people see it and you go, okay, this is great.
Yeah.
So
That's it. Let's talk a little bit about that just real quick. About 5 minutes, and again, thank you all for coming down.
yeah.
Talk about, Matt, we'll go with you. I always seem to lead with Cody, and then you kind of have to follow with what he just said. But
Well, I'm glad finally somebody has said it.
you get to go first. So talk about that feedback that the actor gets from the audience when it is actually happening on the stage.
Well, the thing about when you're rehearsing a comedy is at first it's funny to you, and then it's funny to James, and then that's the golden seal, But then as you keep doing it, you think to yourself, okay, but wait a minute, is this funny now? And the joke gets tired for you. But then as soon as that stranger sees it, or somebody who hasn't seen the rehearsal process, hearing that laugh is like a nice reminder of day one of, oh, we know what we're doing. And it shocks us all. It's a really great feeling of knowing that a joke is landing. So you forget that in the rehearsal process. So it's a nice feeling.
I've always heard comedy is tougher than drama. Is that true?
I think for certain people, it definitely is. I mean, that's our bread and butter. But I always find that anytime I do something really funny like this, like the first thing I want to do is go do the most dramatic thing in the world. But that's what's so great about all the characters that we play. No two characters are remotely the same in this. So I get to scratch that itch, character to character. I play one character who is just the grumpiest farmer that you could ever imagine, and then turn that right around and play the most over-the-top, lovely, type of character immediately following. So it's like I get to do all this fun extra stuff, and I think that lends into the comedy of it too. It's like you're watching us really stretch ourselves one way or another, scene to scene, sometimes within a scene, sometimes within a line. Like we change characters throughout multiple scenes and costumes and everything. It's going to be truly like something you haven't seen before.
Well, I'm going up Friday. I'm looking forward to it. And what's it like when you have to make so many changes like that during the course of one production? How do you keep track?
Lots of rehearsal. Lots of rehearsal.
A cheat sheet. But it's the costumes that really sell it, I think, and it's flinging yourself and the physicality from one person to another. That's the fun for us.
Yeah. And trusting each other. I mean, this is like our 5th or 6th time like being partnered up in some way. So I always know that. I mean, we did Greater Tuna in 2015 where it was just me and Matt, and it was like we would look at each other sometimes and like thank goodness the other person knows exactly where they are, and it kind of we help each other through scene by scene.
That was the production I was trying to think of. Yeah, I remember watching that one.
Yeah.
That was very good. and again, thank you so much. Before we let you go, what's coming up for you next, Cody?
Just going back to LA, continuing to audition. That's pretty much it. This is it for now.
Okay, and Matt, what's up next for you?
I'm shooting a little feature film called Lonesome Town, indie production. That's what I'm doing in the fall. So a little bit after I get back, but it counts.
That is great. and James, what about you? Are we going to see you at Timberlake after this or no?
Well, I would love to come back again, but this is it for this summer. I'm going out to Poughkeepsie, north of New York City, to work for New York Stage and Film for the rest of the summer, and then back to Buffalo in August to teach again.
Okay, so you enjoy that, huh?
Thank you.
All right, hey, thanks all. I'm looking forward. We'll see you Friday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This, keep it on the down low here,
is the Dan Patrick Show.
Monty Williams, of course, is the highest paid coach in NBA history. The Detroit Pistons, they gave him a deal that he couldn't refuse. So he gets fired by Phoenix, and then you got a raise going to Detroit, and you still have some openings here. Is Doc Rivers getting hired?
I don't know.